Welcome to TuneLeak TV. I am Ben Craven, a cinematic progressive rock artist from Brisbane, Australia, who's keeping the spirit of the 70s alive with a healthy injection of 21st century film soundtrack music. But that's not why we're here. What you just heard was a very early snippet from Die Before You Wake. We're here today to just talk a little bit about this single edit called Wicked Delights. So where to begin? This piece came together as I suppose a whole bunch of little bits that were created somewhat simultaneously. The common theme being they're all in the same slightly odd 7/8 time signature, which meant they could fit together into a bigger cohesive piece. That was Die Before You Wake. But there was a particular part of that I was pretty fond of, and it's nothing to do with Pirates of the Caribbean, but that's the kind of feeling I got from that music. The code name was Pirates, as we can see up here. So I've got the session open here in Reaper. There's kind of two parts to this song. There's the main boisterous riff, and then there's the slightly more gentle, I call it the roll-up. It's not really a roll-up, but I think it channels something slightly softer, something more friendly, something more yes-like, whereas, say, the other part of the track is overtly Hans Zimmer. So, of course, we start with the main big. I mean, that says everything straight away. So one way we can sort of separate these parts out is we've got an orchestra, which really, carries a lot. There's strings and brass and percussion and lots of things going on there. But then next to that, we've also got the standard rock band section. So what have we got? Drums and bass, and let's put some guitar in. I think that's really what's going on here. One thing is that there is no room. Well, there is room, but there's not a lot of room for subtlety with the drums at this point. It's very full on. This brings us to the middle ascending chordal section. Now this probably, again, this gives away where some of the influences are, but this is closer to what it started out life as. It's meant to be a continually ascending. It's a trope. It's a thing. But what solidified it was this version. It had a synth solo. It wasn't even complete, but it inspired the way. So there was enough to know what I could do with it. Didn't even bother finishing it. Didn't matter. It was there. And that, of course, became this stuff. So that was slowed down and in tempo to match the other section. And those two pieces together just made this one piece of music. So by the time we're in this section of the song, we can take or leave the orchestra, I think. But let's just see what the band's doing at this point. Chorus, bass. There's some Hammond coming up. There's a giveaway. It's called the Wakeman lead. One thing you will have heard in the intro clip was, yes, it started off as a piano piece. I think the code name then was Vivace. And look, no decent arranger throws away anything. So instead of throwing away the piano bit, it made it to the middle. So look, here's the piano on its own. Bang into the next section. One thing I quite like is the guitars are playing harmonies, because we've got the muted guitar and we got the lead over the top of that, and then we got the harmony. I don't think it's anything you actually notice unless you specifically are listening for it or know it's there. But as for a lot of things I do, it just adds the texture in the background to suggest that things are slightly more complicated than they originally may seem. I'll address the bass guitar as well. Yes, we have a bass guitar. Yes, it's a Rickenbacker bass guitar. And yes, it's running through a Leslie cabinet. So I can't apologize for that, but this is what it's doing. That's fortified with the Taurus. So clearly the Leslie bass is inspired by you-know-who. There's no need to say any more about it, really. You've probably noticed all these orchestra tracks here. I mean, obviously they're not all at once, but they do feature in different parts of the song. There's a very different way you have to approach using orchestral samples versus writing for a real orchestra if you're lucky to have one at your disposal, which I don't. But it does mean that you have to write to the sounds that you have rather than writing for the sounds that you don't have. So you may do unusual things like put in multiple string parts just to get the correct sound, to get a realistic sound. You may throw in odd instruments, which you would normally not write for a score. So here's an example of that, where you cannot rely on strings to sound like strings unless humans are playing them. I find a lot of the string libraries are completely lacking human nuance, human attack especially. They give you these great lush sounding strings, but none of them actually sound in any way human. One way I work around that is to blend the different articulations. So for some reason I've got the tremolo, and that's blended with the staccato. Staccato on its own is... But by blending the two, you get the attack that you need in a track like this. And these strings don't stand out as sounding fake at that point. So that's just one of the little tricks that I use to get some realism. Let's address the cowbell, shall we? Got to have cowbell. So if you haven't actually heard the cowbell in isolation, here it is, not well with the drums. Got to have enough cowbell. So at the end of the day, we've got a fairly short, for me, piece of music. It's meant to be a rollicking, good fun pirate adventure on the high seas. Not too serious. We're having a good time, but it's, it's serious as well. I suppose it's, back to Bern and Herman were having fun. So that was a bit of fun for me. Next up is going to be the next single edit coming out, which is Die Before You Wake. It's got the vocals, it's got the lyrics, so be a bit different this one. So until then.